was this uncle who walked home with this book of mutual funds, and my mom did put aside some money, and of course soon after that he disappeared. In a room full of men, women don't ask questions. They
Yeah.
don't find it to be a safe space to put forth their questions because of fear of judgment. I think just this aspect of women came very early on because I am surrounded by women in my life. My maternal side of my family is the force behind me, my mom and her sisters, and each of them have had very different journeys with money. Ours, when I say ours, my family's and mine, being the one that probably influenced me the largest. I lost my dad when I just turned 13, and that was a tough one, right? Of course, at that point, you're not thinking money, you're not thinking about consequences of the financial loss of this person's life, because those are concepts that I learned only much later when I was studying finance courses, that there is a human life value
Yeah.
in insurance, which of course I didn't know earlier, and I didn't know the consequences of what this earning member's life's loss means to a young woman and teenagers that she
Yeah.
is having to raise. And as things turned out, of course, there was, and I was telling you all earlier, there was, when there was some amount of money, there was this uncle who walked home with this book, and he had this magazine of mutual funds and interest rates written on it. And this is what you will earn, and that is what you will earn. It looks all, it looks so rosy. And my mom did put aside some money. And of course, soon after that, he disappeared. And by the time we had the realization that, where is that money at, has it grown, what has happened, some part of that money had also been eroded because the choice of investments that were made were totally misaligned
Hmm.
to what my mom needed in her life. As a young widow with two children, she needed more guidance in terms of, hey, at this point, they will be need to be educated for their undergrad or for their postgrad, or you will reach a point where there will be your retirement, etc. That didn't happen. So when I had an early understanding of these concepts, there was this thought that yes, if I know this, and if I know that this gap exists for women, I probably will be better placed to be able to, fill that gap and to create, investors who are women who know exactly what we're doing with our money. So even when I was in my wealth profession, invariably was having handling portfolios of women and across the spectrum, right? Young women who are choosing to remain single, women who are married in incredible marriages, but still wanting to keep some part of their investment separate, understand things deeply, do things for themselves, for their kids, etc. Women going through separations and conversations which I didn't think I would have, that how much alimony should I be claiming? Uh, you know, you don't realize until then that is a financial calculation. So just ended up handling portfolios of more women. I was also doing a whole lot of corporate sessions, talking to folks at companies, and realized soon enough that in a room full of men, women don't ask questions. They
Yeah.
don't find it to be a safe space to put forth their thoughts or put forth their questions because the fear of judgment. Oh, they're going to think I'm silly. This question is stupid. I shouldn't be asking it. They'll wonder, how could I not know this much? And at the right point, when Hannah and I started talking, we realized that with our individual expertise, and if we got together to bring something like Basis onto create a platform like Basis, there would be women who are very receptive to it, who will find this safe space, who will, benefit from the community, who will benefit from the guidance that they'll get on their money.
That's amazing. First of all, thank you, Dipika, for sharing so much of personal stories. I think, um, it's touching, and also it's incredibly inspirational to see how one a tragic experience in life, how it transformed into something so meaningful and purpose driven. That's something I can very strongly resonate to, because my personal experience has been very similar in my own family. Most of the finances were actually handled by my mother, but my father was the main so-called breadwinner of the family, and a lot of wrong decisions made along the way. And that I'm talking about a couple of decades ago,
Yeah.
when of course so much of finance talk, or even all these apps and internet that you have, the accessibility was not there. So my mother, the only source of knowledge or information for her were uncles, aunties, and like
Yeah.
completely, I would say that unqualified
Yeah.
sources, right? And of course those financial mistakes cost us a lot of things in life. That's something that had an impact early on in my life, and that's how personal finance is so close to my heart. But the unfortunate thing today is that I have not seen so much of change in the information that women have today, even with all of this access in terms of taking charge of their finances. Now, since you talked about corporate sessions, our experience also has been very similar, and two very important patterns that we have seen. One thing is definitely that when it's a combined session of men and women, women do not ask that many questions. In fact, a lot of times it can be taken as lack of interest.
Yeah.
But we have held a number of women specific sessions, and a lot of times corporates like to do that for Women's Day. And throughout the year, we also do women specific sessions. We have seen the number of questions from women, in fact, are even more than what we experience with men. They
Yeah.
are so interested, and they reach out to us even after the session to find out, what are the other resources they can, look at. So definitely there's this fear of judgment, I would say, and we have to do something to, kind of resolve that. The other pattern that we have seen is most of the women we speak with, although they are earning, they are making their own income, they probably have like joint finances, but they do not participate in wealth planning or financial planning in their family. It's always either their father or their husbands. So have you had similar experiences when you have talked to women in your community?
Yeah, I think 100%, except the difference in our community is that it is a community of women, right? So the
Hmm.
women who are flocking to the platform are women with high intent,
Yeah.
who have realized at some point that, beyond my partner or my brother or my husband or my father, or my bank relationship manager who is a man, I need to start doing something about my money. But in an average family, if you talk to someone, unfortunately so, women are not as invested in those money conversations as they should be. Again, it's all the cultural stuff that we keep
Yeah.
talking about, right? That's existed for too many
Too many
generations, and
generations.
it is going to take time to change. And like you talked about just now, Arpita, even if I think about my mom's experience and what's happening now, it hasn't been a world of a change since then, and that's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
When COVID hit, we were working with some corporates where we were talking to wives of those who lost their lives while COVID. And
Yeah.
the corporates were like, they're getting some amount of insurance money. Can you please talk to them and guide them through this journey? And the type of conversations we would have would make us realize that unfortunately, this woman has never been a part of these money
Yeah.
conversations before. So you're starting from scratch, and she's fortunate, of course, in an unfortunate event, she's fortunate to have this access that's
Mm.
going to guide her through this process. But if this happens to an average woman, she is going to be lost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have seen many of these cases, and this is what you're talking about, after some incident has happened, and they definitely see the importance of it. I think the more challenging part is before anything happens in our lives. There's a lot of taboo around discussing things like death of a spouse and divorce and separation for someone who is like happily married and going about life. So I think that is another challenge when it comes to planning for crisis or emergencies, that we feel that this is not talked about much, and because of that, either no one is taking any action, or the women are not planning for such crisis
Yeah.
because there's unawareness. And of course, because of this lack of conversation, the information also that they have, for example insurance, is very limited, so they end up buying all kinds of wrong products which
Yeah.
actually doesn't come into use. So in your opinion, in your community, do you take any initiatives to make these taboo topics like more, of course the women are there with high intent and they would want to do in investing and goal planning and whatnot, but how about these things?
So I think what we've done, Arpita, the approach we took is to make this stuff conversational first.
Yeah.
To not make it overwhelming, to not make it like, hey, at 10 a.m. on Saturday, you have to go and talk to your father about insurance. That should be happening eventually. But just this realization, we did it very gradually. We try to do it in a fun way. For instance, we did like Valentine's Day conversations around money,
Interesting.
where we were like, not even like, hey, bring your partner. It was like, bring one person you love.
Nice.
Because it could be your mom, it could be
Yeah.
your partner, it could be your sibling, it could be your dad. Bring them to this room and let's talk about fun stuff about money. Because I think money is just, our relationship with money has just been so uncomfortable. Where spending money has been easy and all of
Mhm.
that, but when it comes to handling money, it's just made to seem so overwhelming, which it is not.
Yeah.
Once you get into it, once you understand the ropes, it's actually quite easy. And that is the learning we need to impart first,
Yeah.
that this is not tough. Because in our homes, we've been told this is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not their fault. It may have been really hard for them decades ago, but doing something with your money is not so hard anymore. The main thing, that challenge that happens in our homes is it feels like this is an isolated place. Only
Yeah.
I am feeling this, only I have these questions. No one else is this is on their mind. But and again, these are not conversations like if you and me go to a lunch, Arpita, the last thing we're going to talk about is money
Yeah.
or investments.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if there's a bunch of boys who are going for lunch, they are going to be talking about the last stock that went up. They are going to be talking about the impact that the elections is going to have on the stock market. They are going to be talking about that next real estate property, right? Even within our close knit groups, these are not mainstream conversations, and those are places that this needs to change even before our
Exactly.
homes.
Yeah.
If there is one person of influence who says that, hey, I talked to my dad about his will, chances are her friend is going to think about it.
Yeah.
But these are not conversations we have on a daily basis, which needs to change and which is slowly but surely changing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think very good point. I think one major myth we really need to bust is that this is complicated, and especially for women. I think there's been a lot of conditioning and things being told, but I think once you get started, is as simple as anything else that we do in life. In fact, I feel women handle many more complicated issues than just simple investments. At least there's a science behind it. There's a particular logic you can follow.
Yeah.
The kind of things we handle in life, the different relationships women handle at work and at home, they do not come with any science, and we
Yeah.
know we manage it perfectly well.